There is no product placement disclaimer on this channel because I do not take money or equipment in exchange for reviews, and I never will. Hello, folks. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. This is a short announcement about an upcoming series called In Praise of Cheepnis, and I'm wearing a Frank Zappa t-shirt because Frank was an aficionado of cheapness and even wrote a great song called Cheepnis, which I highly recommend on the highly recommended Roxy and Elsewhere CD or stream on Spotify now that Zappa's on Spotify. So we're going to cover 3 cheap guitars. To me, cheap is like under $400, and one more mid-range guitar, which is that yellow Telecaster behind my right shoulder, which I got for, I think, $7.99, which is a lot for me for a guitar, but I haven't had to do a thing to it, and I think it's now closer to $1,000, unfortunately. But the 3 cheap guitars, one is an Epiphone custom shop 61, 62 SG that I bought used off eBay and then hot rodded. And the other 2 are an Telecaster that I will be hot rodding, and a Xavier, or because it has an E on the end of it, I would say Xaviare, Jazzmaster style guitar that I'll be hot rodding. And that is part of the essence of this series. Is it's not just in praise of cheap guitars, how they come out of the box. It is also how for very little money you can upgrade a cheap guitar to be a great guitar. So we'll be doing sound comparisons and playability comparisons and intonation comparisons in the before and the after. The SG guitar is a guitar that I actually paid someone to mod. It was a little bit beyond my comfort level. And I guess I added $400 to it, and I ended up getting an Epiphone version of the Frank Zappa Roxy SG. Gibson made a Roxy SG that was like $3,400. This guitar has the same pickups in it, same wiring scheme, different placement of the switching because I wanted it in a different place. But it is a facsimile of that guitar that cost me a total of about $600 and is incredibly versatile and has some of the best action of any guitar I own or have ever owned. The IRT guitar, we will be changing the pickups and comparing. The pickups on the IRT guitar kind of blow, and just about everything else on the IRT guitar is kind of great. There's your spoiler alert. Actually, I'm also going to change the bridge saddles on the IRT because the IRT has a standard Telecaster bridge, which is the one example of Leo Fender stupidity I've ever seen, because mostly he was brilliant, but that bridge just blows in terms of intonation. So I will be putting intonated bridge saddles on it. You can get them for like $10, but I paid $25 for the Godot intonated saddles, and I got to look it up, but under 200, maybe $150 for a set of Fender replacement vintage style 62 Telecaster pickups. And we will be comparing before and after intonation, before and after pickup sound. The Xavier guitar, there are a lot of things about it I actually don't like. I think the IRT is far more playable. The one thing about it that is actually better than the IRT is the pickups. Guitar Fetish makes really good, cheap pickups. Their gold foil pickups are frickin' amazing. They're like $35 a piece. They're amazing. I'm talking about the single coil versions. So this guitar, eventually I may change the tuning machines and the bridge and the trem, although I will say this tuning stability is shockingly good. But all we're going to do with this guitar to start with is compare the stock, somewhat hot, somewhat modern sounding, somewhat less quirky and interesting, but very good sounding Jazzmaster style pickups that come with it, with, again, a set of Fender vintage style, I think it's 1964 Jazzmaster replacement pickups. So in both cases, I am actually in all three cases. On the SG, I went with Gibson 4 conductor replacement pickups to do the Zappa mod. With the ERT, I'm going with Fender Tele vintage style pickups with the Xaviare. I just love saying that. I'm going to be going with Fender replacement style Jazzmaster pickups. And the series will cover the basic idea, which is screw cork sniffing. I have a lot of respect for Rhett Schull and for Andre Flood, I think his name is, who's like an absolute stickler for every single possible thing with it. Like he's obsessive. But I'm just not. These guitars are tools. They're like paintbrushes. They all inspire different playing. They've all got their quirks. Some of them are harder to play, which makes me do different things on them. And Andre Flood, on a recent video, discovered that. He's a real modern guitarist, super fast, super shreddy, like a billion, quadrillion times better than me. But he played a guitar that sort of fought with him a little more. And he was like, oh, that's actually changing the way I play. And indeed, I like that my guitars are not identical in neck dimension and string height and everything else. I like that they all have their own personality. And I really, I know Rhett Schull found like the ultimate Les Paul. Well, great, man. I don't have the time or the energy or the money or the inclination. That supposed Telecaster back there, that is a Fender Telecaster. As far as I'm concerned, is a Telecaster in name only. It's got 2 humbuckers. It's got a set neck. It's got a carved maple top on a mahogany body. To me, it's got more in common with a Les Paul, except that it has Tele-style controls, which I've always hated. The 4-pot SG Les Paul ES335 kind of controls. I know they give you more variety, but I can't stand them. I like having I don't even like the Strats that have 3 pots. I like having a single volume and tone control because I'm a caveman, and it just all gets too confusing. But that supposed Telecaster, which you could call it a Les Paul wannabe, it's got a longer scale length, so maybe it's a Tele Paul hybrid. Rhett Schull, I think, has said the Les Paul is a Telecaster on steroids anyway, in which case you could say this is a Telecaster on steroids. It's more Les Paul than Telecaster to me. It's got coil split. You can get a decent single coil sound. Doesn't sound at all like a Tele, but has its own vibe. It's a freaking great guitar, and I've had to do nothing with that. Not even a setup. Is the setup perfect out of the box? No, but I haven't bothered to fix it because it's good enough. I probably will fix the intonation. I haven't done that yet, but I haven't recorded with it, so it hasn't really mattered. So this series is going to be about the joys of getting a cheap guitar and playing it out of the box. And again, all these guitars were purchased by full price by me as an unknown consumer. I bought one from Amazon. I bought one from Guitar Fetish's website, and I bought the used Epiphone SG off eBay. Nobody's sending me a hand-picked best model. This ERT just came from Amazon's fulfillment, and same with the Xaviare. So no special treatment. These are guitars out of the box, the good, the bad, the ugly, and why, in general, I think it's better to have a whole bunch of cheap guitars that you have customized to be the way you want. I've taken old Dan Electros, which have shitty bridges and shitty nuts and shitty tuners, and I've changed all those and gotten great guitars out of them. Put Graphtec saddles on them and Graphtec bridges and Spurzl staggered locking tuners and things like that, and they've made great guitars. I would really personally rather have 8 or 10 great cheap guitars, that some of which I might use stock, some of which I will put a few $100s into. The most I've ever put into a guitar might be might be like $500, probably much more than the guitar cost. But that included, setup, nut, change of the bridge saddles, perhaps a pickup change, fret profiling, lots of goodies. I see no point in, maybe someday somebody will hand me a guitar and I'll be like, oh my God, this is worth 15 grand. But I doubt it. Now, as a caveat, I will say that this is a great microphone. This is a blue baby bottle. I think it was 700, 800 bucks. I sang through an old vintage Neumann U47 at West Orange Sound when I was recording my last album, and that mic's just incredible. It's incredible on everything. If I had the money, I probably would spend the money on that mic. So maybe I could be proved wrong. But I would still rather have my mic cabinet of sub $1,000 mics and one or two over $1,000 mics than that single U47 for $15,000. Absolutely. So you give me a choice between one insane guitar, like a Les Paul, which to me is a very limited guitar. If I had to have one guitar, unlike many people, it wouldn't be a Les Paul or a Tele, it would be a Strat. It wouldn't even be a Strat with a humbucker, I don't think. I love what Strats can do. And I know they don't do everything, but no guitar does everything. Even the guitars that let you switch out pickups. So this is going to be in praise of cheapness and a little bit snarkily, maybe not condemning, but just saying, look, cork sniffers, lighten up, play some cheap guitars, have some fun, get some variety. We're not all Rhett Shull where people are handing us guitars and where we're able to buy, custom guitars that cost 3, 5, 10 grand. I ain't one of those guys. And I have a lot of instruments back there. I probably own 10 or 12 guitars, including 2 or 3 acoustics. And I used 7 of them on my last album. And I got a lot of different tones. And not just tones. Guitars change the way you play. I got different vibes. So I hope you enjoy this series. It is coming up soon.